I've been talking a lot recently about the due process clauses in the Fifth and 14th Amendments. Why? Because they seem to be lost in the noise created by our current legal climate. I thought it would be a good time to dive deeper into these two clauses, both so we can understand them and to see how they are being violated, even if the judiciary does not. So we'll do that next on the Constitution Study.
You have to know wherever you make your stand. Came from a long through line of everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans, and welcome to the Constitution Study. My name is Paul Engel. I am glad you could join me today. We read and study the Constitution. We teach the rising generation to be free, because by knowing our rights, we'll sooner perceive when they're violated and be the better prepared to defend and assert them. Now, if you want to find out more, head to the website constitutionstudy.com. You can find this video, articles, and others that are free for you to use and free for you to share. And I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the video. Right now, let's take a look at these due process clauses. Before we examine these clauses more deeply, we should really have a strong grasp on what due process is. Made up of two words, you would think it's a quite simple definition. However, small and simple are not necessarily related. From Webster's 1828 dictionary, we read that due is what you're owed. That ought to be paid or done to another. And process is a proceeding or moving forward. So due process is a proceeding that ensures what is owed, what must be paid or done to the other. Now, if you don't find that definition very helpful, I don't disagree, which is why I like to use the definition of the phrase from the Free Legal Dictionary. An established court for judicial proceedings or other governmental activities designed to safeguard the legal rights of the individual. Now, the 4th through 8th Amendments of the Bill of Rights are referred to as the Due Process Amendments because they are designed to safeguard your legal rights as an individual. Everything from reasonable searches and warrants to protections against excessive bail or fines are included in these amendments. While not the sum total of the protection of your rights, these amendments were created as part of the Bill of Rights specifically to protect the rights most likely to be infringed upon by governments. And right there in the Fifth Amendment is its due process clause. No person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Now, the Fifth Amendment includes so many protections. The requirement of a grand jury for indictment for capital or infamous crimes, and protections against double jeopardy and self-witness are all included in this one amendment. However, it seems that of the last two, the due process and taking clauses, everyone focuses on the latter to the detriment of their own case. The Fifth Amendment, along with its counterpart in the 14th, which specifically applies to the states, requires that before you are deprived of life, liberty, or property, there must be due process of law, meaning that before you can be deprived of these things, government not only has to follow a process that protects your individual rights, but it has the burden of proof that you are being deprived of them for a lawful cause. The government isn't allowed to simply declare that something is an emergency and deprive you of your rights. Unfortunately, that is exactly what has been happening for the last 18 months. Government actors claim there's an emergency and that it gives them the right to deprive you of your life, your liberty, and your property without even claiming that you are a danger to others, much less actually proving it. And because the American people are so ignorant of both the Constitution and their rights, most of them went right along with the tyranny. Not only did many Americans comply with these orders, many seem to make it their mission to bully others into compliance as well. When those in government couldn't get around the laws directly, they got businesses and corporations to do it for them. And during all of this, most of the American people sat back and did little more than complain, if even that. In short, due process was effectively thrown out the window while the American people either watched or helped. Now, when I first started studying the Constitution, I wondered why the framers listed these three items in the Due Process Clause. Why not include rights or freedom? What was so important about these three things that they should be protected so? Then, as I studied them, I realized just how overarching this clause truly is. Of the three, life is probably the easiest to describe. We all know that if something is breathing and has a heartbeat, it is alive. And since no one on earth can return your life to you, it is important that it be protected. That is why I believe that life is included in the due process clauses. If you can have your life taken away by a process that doesn't protect your rights, well, what are liberty and property worth without your life? Now, we've all seen reports about the conviction of Derek Chauvin for the death of George Floyd. Whatever the charge, Mr. Chauvin was found by a jury of his peers to have deprived George Floyd of his life in a process that did not protect his individual rights. This judgment has led to Mr. Chauvin being deprived of his liberty. This, however, was done with due process of law, meaning Mr. Chauvin's individual rights were protected. Now, if you ask most people to describe liberty, I think what you'll find is more like, I'm not sure, but I'd recognize it when I see it, than a real definition. See, when I wrote my book, I decided I needed to do some research to come to a real, workable definition of liberty. I started with Webster's 1828 dictionary. Liberty: freedom from restraint in a general sense and applicable to the body or to the will or mind. To start with, liberty is freedom from restraint of any kind, the freedom to both think and act as you like. Now, it doesn't take much imagination to see how this could quickly turn into a real mess. If I do what I want and you do what you want, what happens when our wants conflict? Liberty would quickly devolve into the biggest, the strongest, or most influential getting what they want to the detriment of everyone else. What would happen if I had the freedom to take your wallet, your car, or your cell phone, or if you had the freedom to take mine? See, this general liberty or anarchy has to be tempered by something. Now, back to the 1828 dictionary. Natural liberty consists in the power of acting as one thinks fit without any restraint or control except from the laws of nature. So general liberty is tempered by natural liberty, the power to act as one thinks fit, restrained only by the laws of nature. What are these laws of nature? They are the laws so obvious that a sane person doesn't need to have them written down. I like to summarize them as we don't hurt people and we don't take their stuff. But what about things that are not part of natural law? Again, from the 1828 dictionary, civil liberty is the liberty of men in a state of society or natural liberty so far only abridged and restrained as is necessary and expedient for the safety and interest of the society, state, or nation. Civil liberty only places restraints on natural liberty as is necessary or expedient for the safety and interest of society. But there are two very important questions we need to ask here. First, who determines what is necessary and expedient for society? And second, how do they prove it? So we get an idea of how to answer those questions in the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Since the role of government is to secure our rights, not to define them, and since governments get their just powers from our consent, then it cannot be government who determines what is necessary and expedient for society. Instead, we the people are supposed to determine what is necessary and expedient for the safety and interest of society. Otherwise, government is exercising powers we have not consented to and are therefore unjust. See, it's more than that, though. Since it's not enough for government or society to simply state, we need this, there has to be some proof. And that's exactly what's been missing around the world the last 18 months. We were presented with doom and gloom predictions of millions dead from a deadly disease, only to find the death rate is a small fraction of what was predicted. But don't worry, the same people who first claimed that masks wouldn't work suddenly claimed they were essential to stopping the spread. These same people proclaimed that vaccines would prevent you from getting sick, then when that turned out to be untrue, that it would only mitigate the symptoms. Of course, these are the same people who are claiming that you need to follow their mandates without any evidence of their effectiveness because they are the experts. It seems we've forgotten that even experts can be, and often are, wrong. Which is why it's so important that we require governments to follow due process before they are allowed to deprive us of anything. Now, what happens when restraints are put on our liberty that are not proven to be necessary for the safety and expediency of society? Well, according to Noah Webster's dictionary, A restraint of natural liberty, not necessary or expedient for the public, is tyranny or oppression. When we allow restraints on natural liberty, not necessary or expedient for the public, whether that be by governments, businesses, or neighbors, what we have is tyranny. Yes, public mask and vaccine mandates are illegal and must be challenged. Also, while many private mandates may be legal, that doesn't make them moral. If someone you do business with, where you work or go to school or any place else mandates you take actions without proving the need for it, that is tyranny. Think about that the next time you walk into a business and see that mask required sign, or your employer tells you you must get vaccinated. Ask yourself, will you trade your essential liberty for what has proven to be a false promise of safety? As Benjamin Franklin said, they who would give up an essential liberty for temporary security deserve neither liberty nor security. See, if liberty is the least understood of the rights protected by the Due Process Clause, then property is the most misunderstood. I think it's because we use the word property in our everyday lives. We have real property and personal property, which I think leads us to believe that property is stuff. But is that the limits of property? James Madison wrote an essay on property for the National Gazette, published on March 27, 1792, where he said, "Property. This term in its particular application means that dominion which one man claims and exercises over the external things of the world in exclusion to every other individual. In its larger and juster meaning, it embraces everything to which a man may attach a value and have a right, and which leaves to everyone else the like advantage." If we think of property as what we attach value to and have exclusive control over, well, then property becomes a very interesting right after all. Sure, you have a property in your home, your car, and even your phone. You also have a property in what you say, what you think, and even what you believe. You have a property in your body and in your liberty. You have a property in your business, in your ability to work. In short, you have a property not only in what you own, but in who you are. As James Madison put it, in a word, a man is said to have a right to his property. He may be equally said to have a property in his rights. Yes, this right to property is not only ignored today, but it seems everyone from corporations, pundits, and average Americans are just as ready to deprive you of it as politicians, judges, and bureaucrats. How often have our rights to property been denied while some legal eagles debate whether it's a violation of the Takings Clause or some other esoteric opinion of some previous judge? The sad truth is, I cannot remember the last time I heard a case in federal court that actually argued a deprivation of rights without due process. Yet if your body, your faculties, your abilities, and the very essence of who you are is your property, what are you willing to do when you're deprived of them? So why do I focus so much on these due process clauses? Because it is being violated almost every day at some level within the United States. From mask and vaccine mandates to eviction moratoria, to lockdowns, to declarations of essential businesses. These are deprivations of either liberty or property without due process of law. And that's not all. Healthcare laws, vehicle standards, toilet standards, light bulb standards, forced collections of union dues, even the political primaries are designed to deprive you of your life, liberty, or property, and they're all being done without due process of law. Now, I cannot count the number of people who have asked my advice about a due process clause case only to find out their legal advocates haven't even considered the subject. All the more reason we need to educate ourselves about our rights and how they can be protected by the Constitution of the United States. I believe this is why John Jay said every member of the state ought diligently to read and study the Constitution of his country and teach the rising generation to be free. Not simply so we can defend our rights, but so we can help others defend them as well. So when we see rights being violated, we understand not only our rights, but our duty to help the victim. And so we can assist in the defense of others, both legal and societal. Now that you have a better understanding of the due process clauses, what do you intend to do with this knowledge? Will you simply file it away as one more piece of data that you never plan on using? Or will you use it to help that child being masked, the employee being told to get vaccinated if they wish to keep their job, or the small business owner being bullied by some government official to give up their rights in order to stay in business? Will you stand up and come to the defense of those being intimidated by government or society? Or will you turn your head in shame and wait patiently for your turn to be deprived? As James Madison said, if the United States means to obtain or deserve the full praise due to wise and just governments, they must equally respect the rights of property and the property and rights. They will rival the governments that most sacredly guard the former, and by repelling its examples and violating the latter, will make themselves a pattern to that and all other governments. The United States, and in fact all of the states, will only obtain such praise when we, the people, demand it. Will we, the people, fulfill the promise of our Pledge of Allegiance to our flag, with liberty and justice for all? So I don't know if you've thought much about the due process clauses. I certainly know I talk about it enough on this channel. The question is, will we learn what these are and then learn to apply them? It's not enough to simply read the words. We need to understand them and be able to apply them, whether it's how we act, how we interact with others, or even our willingness to assist in the legal defense of ourselves or others. I've had several people contact me recently about situations, some legal, some not. And it's amazing how often the real answer is taking a deprivation without due process. And once I explain the deprivation of liberty, the deprivation of property, and the lack of due process, two very interesting things happen. Now, one is people get some hope that the Constitution does protect their rights, and now they have the tools to help themselves. But what's really amazing is when I deal with lawyers, and they're shocked at the very idea that, wait a second, this is I didn't realize this was here. Or if they knew it was there, it just never clicked in that particular situation. That's why I wanted to spend the time talking about life, liberty, property, and due process right here on this channel. So I hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you want some more information, please head to the website constitutionstudy.com. I post articles, videos. There's a podcast. You can find me on Apple, Google, Spotify. Listen to that, share that, read the articles, share the videos. Everything from the Constitution Study is free for you to use, and please, free for you to share. I beg you, I ask you, share this information. Help others begin to learn and understand. Even if they have a decent footing in the Constitution, you'd be surprised how many people haven't really thought about the due process clauses. This is a great way for you to help spread the word and to help share your knowledge with others. Now, if you want to become a student, a scholar of the Constitution, well, then head to constitutionscholars.com. You can sign up for free. You get access to a library, some classrooms. Mostly you get access to a community of people who are trying to read and study and understand the Constitution. I've broken it down by state. So there's a group for the United States Constitution, and there's a group for each state constitution. You can join them for free and participate. Ask a question, answer a question, be involved, be engaged. That's what the Constitution Scholars is there for students to meet and study the Constitution for themselves. Now, if you want some more, I do have a mentoring program. You start out as an apprentice. As an apprentice, you're a learner. You'll learn not only what the Constitution says, but how to study it, how to engage with it. And I'm setting up mentors for each apprentice. So you'll have a person to go to ask that question, to build that relationship with, to help you grow as a student. Now, once you've kind of grown up as a student, you eventually become a journeyman where you can not only study for yourself, but you can help others study as well, and eventually maybe grow to be a master. Master scholars are the people who not only really understand the Constitution, they're working with me directly to develop more content for you and for others. So if you're interested, check it out. An apprentice membership is $5 a month. You get the first month free. So give it a try, check it out, let me know what you think. If you have suggestions, by all means, let me know. I'm more than interested. But that's ways that you can get involved and you can get engaged. But the biggest thing I could ever ask you to do is share this information. I went on a tour through the Northern Plains sharing this idea of freedom and liberty and due process and knowing our rights and defending our rights, because It's that important. And I don't charge to go out to these events. I'm trying to set one up in Florida and another one, and that I'm thinking we're targeting November. And I'm looking to set up another one in the Pacific Northwest, probably more around springtime. I want to hit kind of the Northwest area, and I know weather up there can get a little crazy until the spring. But if you want me to come visit you, we'll just go to the tour page, constitutionstudy.com/tour, and check out the schedule as I update it, but request that I come to your event down at the bottom. There's a little form you fill out, and if we can make it happen, we'll make it happen. As I said, I don't charge for these events. I usually just try to get my expenses covered. If we can cover my expenses, I'm happy as a clam. So check all that out. If you have questions, ask them. Be involved, be engaged, help be the person that protects rights and liberty in this country, not the person that sits back and watch them be destroyed. So hopefully you found value in all this, and you'll join me here next time for the Constitution Study.